It's not fight week. So, as is the way around here now, for once, I can't believe it, we are back with the MMA Depressed Us, our Bloody Elbow non-fight week show, where we savor the time away from MMA by watching the worst MMA we can possibly find. So, one of those, it's like an addict who can never quite get himself away from it, and when the hit isn't there, he resorts to like the worst possible knockoff version of his drug of choice.
So you're saying these fights are heavily cut crack?
Yeah, or like our Listerine with alcohol in it. Like
Jesus fucking Christ.
We're the Russian like soldiers who got done for like drinking the Russian Air Force when they got done for drinking the brake fluid out of their planes.
Yes, exactly.
Like, that's us.
That's us. And we're joined by Phil McKenzie for what has turned out to be his first ever podcast. So he's asked us to be gentle, but we know that that's just talk. And
well, we've got Zane, the guy who I think, and I'm not just saying this to flatter Phil, but who I think is probably one of the very best writers in the MMA media world right now. One of the most insightful guys I know when it comes to looking at fights. And so, of course, we've brought him on for the very first time to watch some really bad shit and suffer with us. So that is, I think, a really good use of Phil's talents.
Well, that's both incredibly kind and deeply sadistic of you, Connor.
It's actually, maybe there is some kind of complex playing out here where I resent you for being a better writer than me. And so I'm like, this motherfucker has to watch Cahal Pendred fights, or I'll have, it won't, my life is over.
I like the way that our interactions are generally around the worst that well, not the worst, but the kind of blandest and weirdest that MMA has to offer. It's either the League of Extraordinary Journeymen, or it's watching literally the worst fights we can find.
Hey, what can you do?
We've got a good thing, and we're here to squander it. That is the way of MMA. So, on that note, this week we are taking a look at 3 fights that fall into 3 categories. One is good bad. These are sloppy, fun fights that are fun to watch, but in no way can be called good. The second is bad fights. And these are just terrible fights that nobody ever wants to see again, and we are going through for God knows what reason. And the third is major disappointments. And these are fights that were built up to be huge. Expectations around them were great, and they just ended up being total letdowns. So our good bad for this week is what Connor has kindly dubbed, and it's hard to disagree with, the first heavyweight fight in flyweight history. Ryan Benoit versus Freddie Serrano.
If you didn't think 125-pound men could move really slowly and gas after the first round, you were wrong. You are about to enjoy yourself.
And our bad fight today is that all-time classic, your favorite fight and mine, Cahal Pendred versus Dodger Montano.
The fight that Zane, when we were queuing up all of our fights on Fight Pass here, literally groaned when he remembered that was the fight we had decided to watch. Like, you forgot, and it hit you a second time, and it hurt.
Yeah, it's true. And then our major disappointment, and this is a point of small controversy. I say small because there are plenty of things about this that were disappointing, and it was on a disappointing card, but I'm not sure the fight itself is as bad as Connor remembers it. It may be, though, and that is Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn 1. And this is on that terrible Abu Dhabi card that was headlined by Anderson Silva versus Damian Maia, which at some point we're going to cover as well.
It's really it's a controversy of divergent expectations, I think, more than anything, because I don't think any of us remember it very clearly, but Phil, I posited that it's probably going to be better than I think it was, and I think it was one of the worst fights, one of the most disappointing fights I've seen. So it'll be
at the very least, for the first time that BJ Penn and Frankie Edgar fought, because this is title run BJ. This is when BJ Penn was still champion. He dusted Diego Sanchez was not that long in the past. His amazing dominating win over Diego Sanchez, where he basically didn't take a strike and beat the brakes off Diego for 4 rounds. And there's certainly a lot of disappointment that first fight between Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn ended super non-definitively, and with Frankie Edgar getting a decision that almost nobody thought he deserved on a card that was pretty much wholesale just awful in a market that the UFC was really trying to open up and has barely been back to since.
Whether or not it turns out to be okay, it was a disappointing fight. So it does fit the bill.
I mean, I think, we were all just going in there expecting BJ to outbox him, strangle him, and then drink the blood off his gloves. Like that, it was very much not that, I think, and that it was on the horrific card is probably taking a lot of color away.
So because these all tend to take a while, we're going to start here with Benoit versus Serrano. Benoit. I want to say Benoit every time, but it's not. He's from Texas. It's Benoit. Benoit versus Serrano. And just to get everybody familiar with the format, if you haven't seen the show before, we are watching fights on Fight Pass because that's the only way to make sure that everybody kind of universally gets the same copy at the same timing and all that. And if you want to watch along with us, we are starting every fight at the very beginning of the Fight Pass video. We'll talk our way through whatever intros and all that, and then move on to the next one. So there's no syncing. There's no extra work that you have to do. We will count down. We'll count. Do we count up from 1 or down from 3? I never remember.
We've done 3, 2, 1, go. We go on go.
Yeah, we go on go. It's after, it's a 3 count.
I mean,
and you go after 1.
We've probably spent 10 total minutes of discussion on this show just clarifying how the count is going to work.
So anyway, it's 3, 2, 1, go. You go on go. You do not go on 1. And
if you have a download or a DVD or some other form of some other medium that your fight is contained in, we will tell you when the first round starts as well.
Well, yeah. Well, Connor will try to be good about that. If he's not, then I hold him entirely responsible.
I'll stay on it. Because I usually have to interrupt to do it because the conversation gets going as the fight lead-in happens.
So, on that note, are you ready, men?
I'm ready.
I am.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Ryan Benoit versus Freddie Serrano. Oh, God, Mike Goldberg's yelling at me. All right, I forgot to mute my volume.
Okay, mine is actually not started, so...
Okay, we'll have to redo.
We're going to have to redo this. For some reason, my Fight Pass stream is frozen.
All right, refresh that shit, man.
This is... And it just kicked me out. Okay. What a lovely start.
Oh. And I've got a package arriving, as you can hear. Everything's going so smoothly, Zane. It's the best show we've ever done.
God damn it!
I blame Phil, really.
Yeah, okay. I'll cast it. Well, I mean, this is meant to be a show about all that is bad about MMA, and surely like streams kicking out on you and dying, and having to sit through periods of nothing. This is MMA at its finest.
Okay. Well, I'm back. So let's stop the chit chat, and we're gonna start again. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Now we are back. Ryan Benoit, Freddie Benoit, damn you, Freddie Serrano. And I gotta say, Serrano, it seems like because he just fought the other night, and it seems like he's getting boxier as time goes on. Have you noticed that? Like by his last fight, he just looked like he looked like a Minecraft character at that point.
Yeah, he's just becoming a cube.
See, I thought you meant his tactics because he's striking more, which is also true. He is boxier in that regard as well. I think I made some comparison in my last preview about him. I think I said, man, who did I say he could be? Because he's obviously very
Joel Romero is the obvious comparison.
Well, I said he could be, I don't know, another good wrestler who developed their striking, but instead he's trying to be Yoel Romero. And that's why his fights have been disappointing, because He's gone in there. He seems to have abandoned his wrestling, and has gone in there trying to be a dynamic, explosive action striker who just watches you for 45 seconds and then picks your chin off with a flying knee out of nowhere. And it doesn't work that well. So this is really the first fight where he came in and said, I'm going to strike with this guy who, by the way, Ryan Benoit, is a guy who's known for being really bad at one thing, which is stopping takedowns. And Serrano comes in and almost exclusively strikes with him.
Well, and this is one of those fights that on paper, I remember seeing this and just being like, this is so set up to be a terrible fight, because you have a guy in Serrano who really, and like, this is no hate to Serrano, but who really is only a functional MMA wrestler. Like, he's not a great striker. He's not a good grappler. He is a great takedown artist, and that's about it. And then you have a guy in Benoit who's really only a functional MMA striker. He's never learned to grapple. He's never learned to wrestle. He just strikes. So you have a pure striker versus a pure wrestler at flyweight, and nobody's going to have any time grappling on the ground. Nobody's going to have, so it's only going to be taking place in these two, like, one guy being severely outgunned in one limited area, the other guy being severely outgunned in the other limited area. And that is very much the fight we got.
There was a nice moment there where Freddie Serrano flung himself into the fence and then seemed to lose his balance as he came back towards the center of the cage. That was good. Too athletic for his own good is perhaps the takeaway from that moment.
Yeah, I think this fight we'll always have this fight whenever someone says that, talks about how technical and amazing and well-rounded you have to be to fight at flyweight. We can always just look at it and be like, nope, no, you don't.
Yeah, this is the counter argument to my claim that the flyweight division is actually one of the more talented divisions in the UFC.
I mean, to that credit, the reason either of these guys can even compete at all in this, Serrano partially just because he came through a season of tough that got him here, but it is that they are both supremely athletic.
Yeah,
they're like top 5, top 10 level athletes. They're just so single-minded when it comes to skill games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, flyweight, I always compare it to like it's a lead pool. It's thin but it's dense. Because it's not one of these, because some people say, I've heard, and obviously I think we know this is crazy, but people have compared like flyweight to like women's featherweight, and
not close. I've always said
not even close.
It's choppy.
And it's because if you can look at regional flyweight, like, I've watched regional flyweight fights in the UK, and regional flyweights are generally like pretty skilled. There is a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of, like, as the latest season of Tough has shown. But like for actual, it's merely the fact that they are only ever skimming the top 20, 25 off that talent pool that makes it so difficult. And it meant that a ton of bantamweights went down to flyweight, were like, holy shit, this is really hard, and then left again.
It's true. I mean, because it makes sense if you think about it. Like, I mean, ethnographically too, there are a lot more countries with tiny dudes than with huge women.
Well, 125 is very close to the average size of a man on this planet. I think 135 is about the average sized human male. So,
which is ridiculous. My ass feels fat already just hearing that.
You're talking to me right now, but generally, like, the boxing world knows this, that there's a lot of lighter talent.
Yeah.
Like, featherweight in boxing is really good. There are a lot of small guys throughout the world, and lighter weights in boxing would be even better if there weren't so many divisions so close to each other down there. If they had just featherweight and maybe 2 other divisions below it, like the UFC does, they'd have huge talent pools with tons of great fighters. So it stands to reason that there's a lot of good flyweights out there, which there are. But for whatever reason, the UFC has just we're about to start round 1. Here we go. Round 1 begins. The beautiful Christy Blair. Round 1 begins right about now. Okay. See how that's always fun? Some refs really dawdle. They take their time. He's been about 15 seconds ramping up for the fight to start. And it's not even a good fight, Zane. It's not even a good fight.
It's true. I always prefer. I mean, I like my refs with. He did the little chop, but I like my refs to have a really good hand gesture. I think that's really an important aspect of refing.
I hate refs who have signatures. I hate that Yamasaki does this stupid heart thing. I hate that some people do like a kiss and point to the sky like they're Tupac. I hate that. So
we're getting some already some crazy action with Serrano.
I was about to talk about Cecil Peoples' like silly one-legged chop, but Freddie Serrano used it against Ryan Benoit just there,
and then just tried to axe kick him.
Yes, that was beautiful. Serrano is really dipping into his inner Yoel Romero and just throwing out some random ish because he can.
We need more axe.
But a super janky Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
Because like that first punch, he bounced himself off the cage and threw a giant overhand.
And there's a monstrous takedown from Serrano. And this is really this is the problem. So Serrano gets this huge takedown, lifts Benoit up over his head, slams into the mat, and then he's locked into side control where he's going to get nothing done.
Yeah.
And this is what I was like. He's only really a functional wrestler. That's it.
And not even entirely a functional wrestler because his striking game is so disconnected from his wrestling.
And he went for a weird arm triangle choke and then slid off of Benoit, and Benoit was able to scramble back up.
Spinning back kick to the face, 3 feet out of range. It is your oof.
Oh dear.
And there's the problem for Benoit.
Yeah.
He throws a couple hard punches, lands a couple shots, drops Serrano, goes for a guillotine he's not going to get, and gets immediately taken down.
Terrible guard.
Once more into useless side control.
Yes.
Second time we've seen this position in a little over 2 minutes.
And this is exactly the dynamic of this fight. You have a guy who's really good at punching and a guy who's really good at wrestling, and never the twain shall meet, there's not going to be any good punching exchanges between them or any good wrestling exchanges between them because the skill gaps in both areas are so vastly disproportionate.
And because they're so uncomfortable in their respective in the areas which aren't their specialties, they have to spend lots of time in those areas, and then they get really tired.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun so far. I'm enjoying this.
Oh yeah. It's a good bad fight. There's no question. It's not bad. It's a fun it's a fight that keeps going, that both guys know exactly what they want to do and they press it. It's an amazingly limited flyweight fight.
And it doesn't even follow the common flyweight criticism that flyweights can't hurt each other, because both guys have hurt each other already. So they're two of the more powerful hitters in the flyweight division in this fight, probably.
Yep.
Ooh, beautiful body kick from Benoit.
Yeah. His striking. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I'd say the one thing that they share, the only thing that they share, which they're both good at, is they can both kick to the body pretty good. It's true. Serrano is completely unable to set it up in any way, but he's still a really hard body kicker.
His kicking game in general is where is the best part of his striking game. Oh, he just got spun around by a leg kick. That's got to be the absolute clinical definition of having kind of bad leg kick defense is when you get spun around by a leg kick.
He gets spun around by his own leg kicks.
All that too.
It's like Freddie Serrano Yoel Romero is very comfortable with his own athleticism. I don't think Freddie Serrano is. I think he surprises himself with how much off-balancing power he puts into his strikes.
And I think that punch he just threw
second axe kick
was a great example. He threw that punch, he just winged his shoulder into it and was surprised at how fast it went.
Yeah.
Had to pull himself back.
He throws a punch and has to spend 20 seconds regathering his balance, jogging around the octagon trying to catch himself from the momentum.
Yeah, just bleed off the inertia a bit there.
Right. I want Freddie Serrano to have a parachute that comes out of his back Just slowing down after he throws.
Oh, now we're getting some crazy running away in the end of the round. Oh, and Serrano with the cheap shot after the bell.
Good first round. I'm really enjoying this. It's really terrible. I'm loving it.
Oh.
And Benoit, obviously the guy who's more famous for the cheap shot, what with when he kicked Sergio Pettis as I believe one of the disturbing pictures afterwards showed it kicked him up the butt. You could kind of literally see his foot disappearing. Yeah.
He kind of got his foot between the legs and everything. It was more of a shove from Serrano, as we see in the replay. More of a shove than a hit.
Yeah.
Still completely unnecessary. He resented Benoit for trying to punch him in the last 5 seconds.
Yeah, especially with Serrano running away with his back turned. It's you can't really be mad at somebody for chasing you down when you're doing that.
So we obviously couldn't hear what the corner was saying, but I'm guessing there he's open for the axe kick. And
the axe kick is working. Beautiful, champ. Beautiful.
Oh. I actually had somebody, I think, before Ryan Benoit's last fight, I had somebody try to convince me that he was actually a really good grappler. And I realize that we're out of the old school MMA, the, early 90s MMA where everybody only really did one thing. But Benoit is seriously about as one-dimensional a fighter as could exist at flyweight.
Well, that's specifically why he seems like a bad grappler, because we're in an era of well-rounded fighters.
Yeah.
And when it stands out that you're not well-rounded nowadays, it is for a reason.
And particularly in this division.
It could even be that in a gi or in a no gi competition or something like that, he's actually a pretty good grappler.
I'm sure he is pretty good. He could choke me out. That's for damn sure.
Sure. But... Sure. Anybody could beat me. There's
nice.
I have no delusions about that.
So Benoit does look like the more comfortable fighter really everywhere right now. He does look like he actually he has his range. That's the real difference on the feet. Serrano comes in wild, and Benoit has picked him off a couple of times.
Benoit somehow believes that his guillotine defense is the perfect way to stop a takedown, though.
Even though he's ended up holding onto a guillotine inside control twice now.
And I mean, we have a good look at just how much neck he landed the axe kick.
He's landed 3 out of 4 axe kicks.
That was a huge slam from Serrano.
It is 2 fights constantly vying to happen, vying with each other. It is Serrano being a really strong, powerful wrestler and pressuring from top position, and then Benoit just effortlessly hitting him at range.
Yep.
The thing is that Benoit's style is his one is more likely to generate moments which change the round.
Yes.
Because a bit ago we had in this round he landed a body kick, and it just froze Serrano for 10-15 seconds. He just literally just stood there and then went back to axe kicks and so on. And then he landed that counter left hook. He can he's much more likely to just to hurt Serrano in a crazy back and forth round of a ton of stuff. You're going to be oh yeah, I remember that one moment where he really clipped him.
That was an impressive little burst there from Benoit, though, to get up. Serrano, I think he must have watched an instructional on head and arm chokes before this fight, because he just keeps going for the same one over and over.
Hey, if he got Ryan Hall's DVD, I don't blame him. It's a good one.
So. Yeah, and Benoit just kind of bench pressed him up, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, we're very much stuck in this very singular type of fight where Serrano is.
Go on. I'm sorry.
Serrano is now desperately trying to wrestle, and Benoit is desperately trying not to be wrestled.
We had some pretty nice single leg defense from Benoit there. When he didn't, I think it may even be that Benoit's not a bad defensive wrestler, but that to him, it seems to occur to him that it's a moment when his opponent gets into his hips, it's a moment to rest and just kind of stop focusing on the fight. And so he just stands upright with his back to the fence and gets taken down. What a combo from Freddie Serrano.
The half-hearted double jumping knee to right overhand.
Classic. I mean, it's basically the 1-1-2 of MMA.
Yeah, Benoit is not a good defensive wrestler. It's partially rest, and it's partially just that he almost never looks for underhooks ever.
Maybe he's better. Maybe that's why he's so bad at defending them against the cage. I think he looks like he's a little better in open space when he has
his athleticism can make the difference there, and he can hop and use his balance and things like that.
Well, I think it naturally occurs to him. He feels himself losing balance, so he goes for underhooks. He creates distance against the fence. He's like, well, the cage will save me, and then he just gets taken down easily.
Yeah. You especially think, too, with Serrano. Like, Serrano has no neck. The thigh drop, I love that.
Yeah. He's literally dropping his left hip onto...
he is humping his head into the floor.
onto Benoit's head.
Which, it shows me that Serrano's got some John Jones in him. Some of that, I will do something that is probably illegal, but I bet the ref won't know how to call it, and so I'm going to get away with it.
And I don't think Serrano is. I think Serrano with the right camp could be a really good fighter.
Oh yeah, especially if he'd got to MMA 10 years earlier.
Yeah,
I would have high hopes for him.
But with John Jones, he was lucky that he had a pretty depleted talent pool and that he has a huge reach advantage and everything to help play off of that weird creativity. For Serrano, it's, in the fastest division, he's a guy who is relying on lunging with his short arms across this huge gulf of space, and so it just doesn't work. The speed is too much, and he doesn't have the reach to make those weird one-off shots effective.
He's also just in a division where where top control isn't valuable.
Yeah.
Because allometric scaling, you can just, if you're athletic enough, unless the guy on top of you is like a Mighty Mouse level technician, you can just pick them up.
It's a division where there is
stand up from underneath them.
There is literally one guy who consistently controls his opponents from top position, and no one else in the division can do it. You kind of have to be Demetrius Johnson at flyweight.
And it's also got to be said, too, that you can especially see it when Benoit jumped on that second terrible guillotine that got him slammed halfway through the mat. Serrano, you really got to consider when you're trying to choke somebody whether or not they have a neck, because Freddie Serrano has, he is literally just a head on a torso.
He's a head with two stubby legs coming out of it.
He is. And, there's nothing to choke there. Benoit going for a guillotine again, and there's nothing there to be choked. At some point, you got to know that.
I remembered Serrano really getting nothing done, but it's a pretty close fight, actually. He may have won the last round with his top control and his striking. He got some really nice takedowns.
He's actually working a little ground and pound here for once.
And guard may be a better position for him. He's constantly ended up in side control, which is kind of notorious for being a position where people can belly down and scramble out. Guard and half guard, when there's some kind of leg entanglement happening, it's much easier to exhibit control while you strike.
Well, and you can see Benoit is actually locking down a closed guard, which is basically why don't you just stay on top of me and punch me for a while? That's cool.
And he's doing it. This is, like I said, man, Serrano is just a kind of a amusing disappointment to me because he could be pretty good. He's got real potential.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really lack for anything apart from, obviously, you get the impression with both of these guys that they are the best athlete at their camp. They can do whatever they want. So they do whatever they want. They can. Benoit is probably a good enough grappler to out-grapple anyone who's going to be training.
Oh, Freddie Serrano just tried to somersault into Benoit. Benoit just fell on him.
He kneed him in the back of the head. He rolled the back of his head into a knee.
Oh,
questionable stand-up.
That was amazing.
I felt like Serrano actually should have kept top position. That was a questionable stand-up a few seconds
ago.
It
was a questionable stand-up, but the result was beautiful.
I'm not mad about it.
Oh, that was absolutely amazing. Serrano's cup also appears to be bothering him. I don't think his cup is fitted well, which is weird because it's huge. So I gotta like,
Not
hey,
huge enough,
there's
Zane.
the ninja roll again.
It's not huge enough, Zane. That's the problem with
That's
Freddy.
right.
Serrano totally, he lacks striking fundamentals. That's the most
Yep.
obvious thing. And then just process. He lacks either the mindset necessary or the skill set necessary to execute a game plan of any kind. Everything is
jump butt first into Ryan Benoit.
He tried to do it. He tried to do a jumping tornado kick, I think, and then Benoit just kicked him in the butt out of it. This fight is amazing.
Yeah,
it is exactly like.
They both lack grappling fundamentals too, which is the other. Like Serrano lacks the fundamentals to be a control grappler.
Well, if he made better decisions on the ground, he could be controlling. If he just doesn't do the right things.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, his stand-up in this round has been amazing. Oh
my god!
He just went for that roll again, and it rolled through Benoit's legs.
Attempted what appeared to be a groin kick right off of the stand-up.
It is it is like someone's transmitted heavyweights into lightweight bodies, and they're just like, I can do all this crazy athletic stuff. I can it's like they've finally discovered they can fight in like low gravity, and it's like, I'm gonna spend the whole just gonna spend the time like jumping and spinning and twirling through the air and using my newfound
Christmas morning for heavyweights.
But I'm also really tired.
They still have the heavyweight cardio. They're both exhausted, and yet they both keep doing stuff that's just bound to burn a ton more energy and get very little done.
Oh yeah.
I think maybe the most universal sign of two fighters who don't really know how to win the fight is when two men will stand there and literally stand still and look at each other. It's something you never see in elite fights. You see it maybe 1% of the time where someone will try to make a statement by staring the other guy down. But when two guys just kind of stop moving and look at each other, waiting for the other guy to go, that is almost always a sign of two guys who are really not sure how to win a fight.
It's true.
I suspect it's at least Benoit clips Serrano there.
I suspect it's at least. Go on.
It's at least partially like passing the options. Like Serrano's probably just thinking like, okay, what have I thrown? Thrown the tornado kick, forward roll, the axe kick, cage punch. Left.
And that's our fight. Benoit ends with a little bit of posturing. Serrano ends with another cup adjustment and a lot of tiredness. He's leaning over on his knees. The calf, the axe kick so high, it landed with the back of his calf on Benoit's head.
I mean, like, his timing and spacing on these counter kicks is actually pretty impressive for a guy who only spent the first 30 years of his life wrestling.
That's why they call him the Profe.
What's the Profe?
That's his nickname.
What does it mean?
Profe. Which is Spanish for the Profe.
What does it mean, though? You don't know what it means?
You don't know? You don't know? You can't translate that?
Is it professor?
Yeah, there you go.
That was my assumption. I didn't want to make assumptions, Zane.
It's it's Spanish. It's not like Japanese. This isn't a word puzzle. These are Latin-based languages.
All right. The only way I can save face is to try to get Phil to pronounce some Spanish words, because it's the only thing that British people don't know how to do. Phil, say taco.
Taco.
Oh. Say pasta.
Don't do it.
Pasta.
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 Pasta is delicious.
Quite.
Don't humor the child.
Oh man, what a great fight! I mean, that was really, really entertaining.
Yeah, no, it's a top tier fun bad fight.
Yeah, I'm glad we watched it, and I hope they find people for Serrano to beat. Like,
yeah,
I want to see him more on. I want to see more fights like that. I just want to see someone go out there and just try with crazy athleticism and slams into nothing and and crazy jumping kicks.
No, I enjoy watching both these guys. Like, I was really glad that they did the Brandon Moreno Ryan Benoit fight, because it's like Benoit too. He's fun. Like, he will just come out there and sling bombs at people, and he won't wrestle and he won't grapple, but he'll be there slinging bombs.
And he's very game, man. He can take a beating, and he will continually try to win the fight. So,
yeah, I mean, he's. This may be one of the less technical flyweight fights, but like you guys said, like these guys are really athletic. You know, the Sergio Pettis fight, for example, you know, Benoit is getting totally out techniqued. He's getting taken down. He's probably losing the stand up, and then he just melts him.
Yep.
Like he is still a talent.
He is. He's just spent his whole career at Jinjara Muay Thai in like Texas, and it's you know.
I also seem to recall Ryan Benoit had a great fight before his UFC career. Yeah, his fight with if you haven't seen it, MFC 37, his fight with Anthony Birchak was also really fun.
Yep. That was just that was a slobber knocker brawl. So.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's kind of the fight Benoit and Birchak are made for. So if you give Ryan Benoit the right matchup, he is always fun to watch, you know?
He is. We're getting a bunch of audio that we can't hear. Joe Rogan actually interviewing here.
I mean, we can move on if you want. We don't have to sit here and watch him for the.
This is true. Let's move on. We don't need to watch the random replays of this fight, which was totally hilarious. I'm just sad that they're not replaying like Serrano's butt jump and his somersault into Benoit's knee.
I think Serrano, by the way, obviously has a titanium chin, because I'm pretty sure he's just off balance every single time he gets hit. And if he wasn't, the way he recovers from those shots, he'd probably be impossible to hurt.
That's maybe true. All right. Let's call that a day and move on.
Let's get ready to get sad.
To our bad fight. And what a bad fight it is. We now bring you Cahal Pendred.
It's really affected Zane. It's made him emotional.
I've already been battling the flu. This is kind of pushing me over the edge here. Like, people will see me tomorrow or, in the next week, and I'll just be like this frail husk of a man in bed. Like, I watched terrible fights.
I watched Pendred versus Dodger. I don't know what I was thinking. It's for a guy who is known. Do you want to hit play here? We can do a countdown and then talk about it.
Okay, let's do our countdown and then start talking.
Cahal Pendred, Augusto Montano.
3, 2, 1, go.
So for Cahal Pendred is a guy who is known for bad fights and controversial decisions. A guy who is basically not known for being able to put his stamp on a fight in any meaningful way.
He's big and tough, and that's about it.
And comically slow. And this is, with that already being his reputation, I think this is easily his worst fight ever.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
It's the bottom of the barrel. Because Montano, who is a guy, Montano, by the way, is a fun fighter. He's entertaining to watch. And this is a horrible performance from Montano.
In which he then failed the drug test. So, it was not even just bad, but it was as bad as it could get for him.
Was it for heroin? Because I can't imagine any performance-enhancing drug turning in a performance like this. It had to have been something that, like, it had to have been tranquilizer or something.
There when he was staring the camera down.
Someone was just sticking a syringe into his ass. Horse tranquilizers.
So like this is the classic, like someone trying to be technical and fight to a game plan and just ending up circling endlessly doing nothing fight. Like,
well, I think part of what you really see in this fight is Montano finally, Montano being, he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's been a bully largely on the regional scene. He's been a big, strong guy who was bigger than a lot of the guys he fought and was able to bully them inside, get them in the clinch, and land a lot of aggressive offense. And I think he kind of stepped into this fight and just saw how huge Pendred was as a welterweight. Because Pendred, that's his thing, is he's a monstrously big welterweight. And I think he was just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to fight this dude. This dude's huge. Look at him.
It also strikes me as the kind of fight where Montano's corner probably said the wrong things to him all throughout the camp. You know, instead of saying, here's what you're going to do, here's where your strengths are, here's where his weaknesses are, they said, don't get taken down, Dodger. Whatever you do, don't get taken down by this guy. He's too big and strong. So he comes into this fight, he treats Pendred as if he's George St. Pierre, as if he can't do anything or he'll be put on his back. And that's not the right way to approach a Pendred fight. Like, yeah, he's going to try to wrestle you, but you can get after Pendred and force him to fight and hurt him. And for a guy who's known basically for
you're looking like he's come off a bad
This man is trying. This explains everything. That man has just ingested some Quaaludes. I'm telling you. He's right now. He's trying to get past the sleepy stage, and once he steps into the cage, he's just going to be zonked out.
Just like the form of his face and the mouthpiece look like he's constantly trying to stifle a yawn, doesn't it?
Yeah, or like constantly sucking back drool that's threatening to come out of his mouth.
He just vaguely looks like Lurch from the Addams Family at the moment.
Not even vaguely. He looks like Lurch with a cool haircut. And I use the word cool very loosely.
Yeah, very loosely. Very loosely. He's been to Vitor's barber, and he said, throw some color in there.
No. Vitor's barber, he follows Vitor's instructions, but he's very technically precise. Those are some complicated patterns. This looks like he did his own hair in the dressing room after the tranquilizer was administered.
Oh, poor Dodger.
He's fun, man. Both the Montano brothers have redeemed themselves for me because they've both been putting on fun fights in the UFC.
They're low-level action fighters. I mean, people.
Yeah, they're fun.
You know, if they think that they can win a fight being an action fighter, they will. And if they can't, then shenanigans ensue. But that's no different than 80% of the other fighters out there in the world.
Little Montano was very close to beating. Who's the looking
Randy
for
Brown?
A fight guy? Yeah,
Randy
Randy
Brown.
Brown. He was very close to beating him. So
yeah. I have a confession to make. I have seen this fight twice.
Oh wow!
And how was your second viewing compared to the first?
On fast forward, because I had some friends over to watch the fights, and I think I'd watched the prelims for this one already, and I was like, you guys watch this fight. And then I just sat there and put it on like 3 or 6 times fast forward, and my friends just sat there going, why are you doing this? Why are you making
1 minute 1 minute rounds were still too long.
Yeah, whilst I was literally just crying with laughter to myself, only entertaining myself as like Montano zipped around the outside of the cage like a Benny Hill sketch.
Well, I'm happy then to make you watch it on normal speed so that you can cry too, without laughter.
just the agony.
That's right, just the agony. Oh,
is this also the fight where we talk about how cool Cathal Pendred is?
Is it?
Because
how cool is he?
I don't like. Because he is a guy that I never felt like he lost because he didn't try or because he wasn't like.
No. He knew what he was doing.
He wasn't giving it his all. He's just not, a top level UFC fighter, and that's a fine and that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, because Cathal Pendred was my nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Did he know this, or is this were you out there making voodoo calls?
Because the first fight against whoever it was.
Real quick. Fight is about to start. Sorry, Phil. Fight starts now. Please continue.
I'm suspecting there's going to be a lot of dead time in this fight.
Please continue your long story. Make it as long as you can.
Yeah. So you remember his first fight against, I think it was Mike King, who also popped afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And most people were picking Pendred, and I was just like, but I think Pendred just isn't terribly good.
Well,
he's sort of a regional European wrestler, which is rarely a particularly, who's winning on being big and strong. And so I was expecting him to get like
3 steps into that leg kick.
He's very slow, just athletically speaking, he's very slow-footed. And when he strikes, it sometimes genuinely looks like a slow motion attack. He's not well trained as a striker. I don't think that Owen Roddy has spent a ton of time fine-tuning the game of Cathal Pendred the way he has Conor McGregor. Instead, it looks like a lot of guys at SBG, Cathal Pendred has spent a lot of time just kind of trying to do what Conor McGregor does in sparring, and he's perhaps the least likely type of athlete to be able to make those things work. Artem Lobov has slowly figured out how Conor McGregor does some of his counterpunching and stuff like that. Cathal Pendred is the king of the lead right uppercut from 4 feet away that takes 4 seconds from start to finish. It's just not a style that through osmosis he could possibly do. But Phil, what you're saying kind of reminds me of I think a couple of years back, Luke Thomas did a rant where somebody sent in a question or something disparaging Bubba. Is it Bubba McDaniel?
Yeah.
That John Jones is like the Jackson Wink guy who was on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yep.
And they disparaged him and talked about how terrible he was. And really, I guess what we should say to kind of cut through the cynicism of this show is that these are all good fighters compared to the world of combat athletes. They got to the UFC. They've gotten wins in the UFC. The bar is really quite high for what it takes to be considered good enough to compete at the top of the division. And Pendred doesn't hit that bar, but he tries, man. He really does try.
Yeah. So basically, he had win a ton of. So he won the King fight by King basically gassing himself out, and then he'd win a ton of like sketchy decisions every time I'd pick against him, until my picks in the staff predictions would basically just be me going Pendred, and like until eventually, he did kind of hit that ceiling. But he just got kicked in the head by
Montano actually trying to get Montano running past Pendred and like throwing a punch on the way. It's like that scene in Mrs. Doubtfire where he throws the fruit. That's like what Dodger Montano just did to Cathal Pendred. It was a drive-by fruiting.
Bit of a kind of running clothesline.
I really wish I hadn't used my cavalry reference in the Mir Krokop fight, because it's really fitting here.
It really is.
Montano looks as if he's mounted on the back of a horse, trying to hit a man with a punch as he rides by. Nope, time for another charge. He's collecting another lance from his squire.
Oh, yes. Famous Pendred spin.
Oh, my God.
The classic moment from the fight, really.
Like, I feel bad, too, because, you saw early in this fight, Pendred got really deep on a double leg, like really deep, and just couldn't finish it. And there's just so many technical tools missing from his game in order to be successful as the type of fighter he is.
Yeah.
Like, as a big, powerful grinder, Montano just fell over.
Did a back roll and then ran away.
Huh? Yes, just fell over.
But this is the weird thing, is that Montano is probably the only guy Pendred's ever fought who's kind of as big as him. Look at the size of him compared to Pendred. But I think that is what's, because he's used to being a bully, and he doesn't feel like he can overpower Pendred.
Yeah, that's definitely what's going on with Montano. I mean, him tripping over himself, like, you can see how eager he is to just stay away. He does not think he can fight Pendred, really.
Pendred taunting and then eating 2 knees. Good stuff.
And yeah, like Pendred, the thing is, he doesn't even really have a wrestling game. He's got a cage grinding clinch game. He got really deep on that double leg and was just like, I'll just slide up his body and whatever, we'll reset. And it's like, you had your hands clasped behind his knees. How did you not finish that?
It's, say what you will. Cathal Pendred, he commits, man.
Oh, yeah.
There's he's going for a strike. It may take him 3 long steps to get into range, but he goes for it. And if you're not going to be willing to stand there and counter him, oh my God.
Oh, the highlights from this fight.
This also not as bad as I remember. It's pretty fun so far. I think
think it deteriorates.
You think it gets worse than that?
Yeah, I think Montano gets on. As far as I remember, Montano gets on his bike progressively more and more. But yeah, I think my best description of Pendred I made was that he's like a boss fight from a video game, where he kind of lights up before he throws.
Yeah, he kind of
takes a really long time.
Yeah, he like blinks his eyes 3 times when it's time to hit him, you know. But
oh. Yeah. Well, it's also all these fights are a little better when you actually have somebody else to talk to while you watch them.
That's true.
When you're not watching it alone in your room as the 10th of 15 fights you're watching that night, you're going, oh God, why am I doing this with my life? It's a little easier. Oh, Montano. He looks like he just like it looks like he went out for casting call from an 80s like Road Warrior knockoff movie.
Yes, I was just going to say that. Like Raiders from Atlantis or something, some really shitty Mad Max knockoff. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the main thing he is obviously is Rufio.
That's true.
He's Rufio from Hook.
Which if Hook took place in, there's a potential maybe that Hook could take place in like the Mad Max universe, especially like it's got kind of a Thunderdome vibe with the kids, That
would be a truly terrifying crossover.
Just saying,
Pendred was knocked down a moment ago, and now he's stalling.
He did. He ran right into a punch from Montano, which did not give somehow Montano any extra confidence that he could beat Pendred. But we are in the battle for who's the best at hugging right now.
I mean, to an extent, Montano's approach to this fight makes sense. It's rational.
Yeah,
it's just not. It has muted the aggression that actually makes him a good fighter. He doesn't have the fundamentals to be an outfighter. So when he tells himself, you can only throw one punch and you got to get out of there, it kind of takes away what makes him good.
It's Clay Guida against Gray Maynard, except that instead of Gray Maynard, it's against Cathal Pendred.
Yeah.
And it's just not as worthwhile to try the Clay Guida strategy in that fight against Cathal Pendred.
It's like current Clay Guida versus Gray Maynard.
Versus current Gray Maynard.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays at featherweight, both kind of really sad and not doing that great.
Yeah, so Pendred just basically willed himself to a really extended takedown, and Montano just kind of went down with that sad looking, I'm so tired look in his eyes.
Now is actually when the Quaaludes have not quite kicked in yet. They're really making him feel sleepy. Kind of ride that out.
Nobody knows what anybody's going for at this point.
No.
Pendred, maybe for a front headlock series, maybe, but no. An actual knee to the head, and
solid knee.
Montano pushing off.
Couple of good shots on the ground from Pendred as well.
Montano with that I love my clinch game a lot move where he could have separated out back into range, but his initial reaction was I should clinch and throw a knee. And so now he's stuck into super tired man wrestling.
Pendred, I think, does, whether it's because his opponents tend to tire out or whatever, he does tend to get better as the fight goes on.
No, he's relentless.
Yeah.
He's just this slow moving golem.
I mean, he's actually building some takedowns here. He's putting together different finishes to capitalize on Montano's reactions. Like this is some clever wrestling.
Yeah. There's some actual, that's a nice little takedown series from Pendred where even though he didn't have the power or the technique to finish any one takedown, like a power takedown, he was able to do some foot sweeps and turn and change some angles and
he just
land a few shots.
Yeah.
Still, though, I mean, not all that much has happened here.
No.
Like, neither guy is in any kind of danger, and Montano just looks really uncomfortable.
He's really not sure how to get his foot out of that half guard.
Yeah, he's in a really uncomfortable looking, head and arm choke, which I'm it's out of it.
He tried to do a technical stand up from half guard, but wasn't really quite sure how to. And again, he's not quite sure how to clear that leg.
I mean, say this for Pendred, like whoever fights him, it's always going to be like, they're never going to have a good time.
No, he
like with the exception of Tom Breeze.
Pendred never looks good, but nobody ever looks good against him.
Yeah,
unless you can knock him out with one punch. That's the only time.
Who has knocked him out with one punch? Was it
Tom Breeze?
Oh, Breeze. Yeah, Breeze. Yeah.
Oh, he kind of gut him with a body kick and then like flurry him a bit. Yeah, that was pretty. That made me kind of sad, to be honest.
It really does. You even if you go in resenting Pendred for all of his bad fights, you watch it, you're like, wow.
He's trying. I mean, this is the thing. It's like I can never hate a fighter. I can never be annoyed by a fighter, or even like really hate watching a fighter who actually has a plan on how to win the fight.
Sure.
Yep.
Pendred is Phil's Nikita Krylov. Except with me, like there's genuine resistance to my distaste for Nikita Krylov, whereas nobody in the history of Phil's resentment has ever argued against him. No one but like the most diehard Conor McGregor fan has ever told Phil that he's wrong for not liking Cathal Pendred's fights.
The thing is, I kind of learned to respect Pendred. Like
this is why we do the League of Extraordinary Journeymen, because none of us can watch bad fighters or bad fights without kind of taking away some kind of moral victory from it.
Yep.
Montano looking exhausted.
They're telling him, okay, try a spinning kick.
That's right.
That'll
run by him and slap his face.
That's what I want to see. Someone just jogging and trying to sprint slap someone for 5 minutes. That's what I want.
Oh.
That's how you know a guy's a good outfighter, when he doesn't know how to circle right without crossing his feet.
And when he feints the jab from 5 feet away, find some range.
You know what we should have been doing? We should have been trying to see how many steps Pendred can see before he throws a kick. Because I swear there's been like a couple of times when he's done about like 4 little trotting steps before he throws the kick. Like he's like building up speed by jogging on the spot before he unloads it into this big kind of soccer kick boot.
You really have to and I mean, it's a weird thing for, you see it with people, and it's just like they have to build when you're not, maybe when you're not a very good athlete, you have to build like all of these momentum and steps of like how to do something. Like you have to trick your body into a rhythm to be able to do it. And I think that's what a lot of it is. It's like the only way I can make my body remember to throw a kick and be on balance is if I build this rhythm of like, okay, I'm going to take 3 steps, and by the 3rd step, I'll be able to throw the kick.
Pendred kicking looks like me bowling. Like I have no idea how many steps I'm supposed to take or what position I'm supposed to end up in before I roll the ball.
Yep. So you just take this like little trotting run up, and then
and occasionally he'll set his foot down on the actual lane, and it's waxed, so he kind of loses his balance. His shoes are too damn smooth. Oh my God, Montano.
Sidekick. Sidekick.
This is true.
Absolutely nothing.
This round, I think, is the apotheosis of this fight.
Oh, it really is.
Like, takedowns to nowhere, circling to nothing. It's great.
Pendred going for low single, and we already know he doesn't have the leg drive to finish a single takedown, like just to drive in on a double or a single. So seeing Pendred in on the low single is just like, I know I'm in for a slog right now, because he's not finishing that, and it's going to go up against the cage. And here we are in the slog.
And maybe Montano was totally right for taking this approach to the fight, because I thought before he was pressuring Pendred a little bit. It looked like it might work. He had his back near the fence, and then he stuffed a takedown, but got ran 30 feet across the cage into the fence behind him. With Pendred starting on the opposite side of the opposite fence. So even when he's pressuring, maybe he can't actually just stop the strength of Pendred well enough to keep from being controlled by a counter takedown.
Yeah, and I think it's the issue of cardio as well. That if he wraps up with Pendred every time he does that, like his stamina bar is going down faster than Pendred's is.
Definitely.
Oh. Montaigne, oh, there was the running slap again.
He did a Rin
Nakai kick.
Rin Nakai front kick into running slap. That's amazing.
Pendred tried to counter with a running slap of his own. That's what I really liked about that.
Like, Montaigne had one combination he landed this whole fight, and it's just like, I mean, you realize that if you actually sit in front of him and throw your hands 2 or 3 times, Pendred doesn't have a lot of answers for, like, how to block strikes.
Tried it before, and he got ran into the fence. Maybe he can't. Maybe he can't let his hands go without getting tied up and then just further depleted. So he kind of has to hope for, like, one big shot, and he just doesn't have that in his arsenal.
Lead right uppercut from 4 feet away, take a shot.
And sweet chin music, an attempt at sweet chin music, a front hook kick.
Also, with Pendred doing the running slap, can we think of this as being like Lawler McDonald 1? When like Rory was landing the snap kick to
and Robbie Lawler stole it for his own.
Yeah, he was like, I've stolen that. That's mine now. Like, Pendred's doing the same thing. Like,
I'm the running slap guy in this octagon. Nobody running slaps me.
Montano and Pendred just ran into each other and slid off each other in there.
Someday I'm going to make an hour-long GIF compilation of just Cathal Pendred's lead uppercuts.
I always wanted to do a whiffed wheel kick compilation for, like, especially for.
And there's the end of our fight.
Amazing.
Oh, Lord. By the end of that was pretty sad.
Yeah, third round was real bad. It was real bad. Look at the strike differential.
No, that's advancing.
Advancing. Never mind.
How can both of you only be advancing 20% of the time? That's not how. How does that work?
Because sometimes they were literally standing doing nothing, and neither man was moving forward or backward.
50% of that round was nobody doing anything at all.
There was like 20% of that fight where so little was happening that you couldn't even say that one of the guys was moving forward.
Oh God!
Holy shit! The highlights are pretty epic. It looks like tight flashing. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Oh man. Lord.
Hey, you know what? If those were giant robots in the finale of a movie, it would have looked like a pretty good fight. In slow motion, it really, like, if I could pretend those guys were each 50 feet tall, it made it seem more exciting.
The finale of Atlantic Rim.
Yeah, Atlantic Rim.
Which I still haven't finished watching, by the way.
Pacific Rim, you mean?
No. I mean the film that came out slightly before it, but was clearly made by watching some of the promotional materials.
Oh, is it one of those? What's the film studio that makes the
Mockbusters?
It's like the film studio that made the Transmorphers.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a mockbuster. I tried making it through it. It was not very good.
There's a specific company that makes those. They like try to trick grandmas who are buying.
Yeah, that's always the target. It's always fake Pirate of the Caribbean or
The Asylum. Yep, same people. The Asylum. They did Sharknado and they did Transmorphers and all those other knowkoffs.
Oh my God! It's also playing Howard versus Pendred.
No! Stop it! I'm Xing out. I'm close the tab.
All right, now we're in our grand finale. We've had our bad fight. We've had our good bad fight, and now we get our massive disappointment. Which may not be a massive disappointment. Who knows? Maybe it'll toe some weird mediocrity line where it's worse than we remember and better than Connor thinks. But either way, we're about to dive into Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn, the last leg of our MMA Depressed Us run. And I am starting in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So yeah, this whole event was just terrible. And has the UFC been back to Abu Dhabi since? Did they? I feel
they had
like
they had an event. They had the main event of Roy Nelson versus Big Nog. It was also a bad card.
Yeah. God.
Oh.
If it wasn't all built by slave labor, I'd feel sorry for the UAE for all that.
Literally anyone who is watching this right now, watching fights with us, open a new tab and go look at the Nelson versus Nogueira poster, because it is indicative of how little the UFC cared about that event. It is the laziest Photoshop.
Nelson has a 5-foot arm, right?
It's the worst poster they've ever done.
He's got this skinny rocket fist flying out.
They couldn't really make them look like they were looking at each other, or it's really bad. It's a very bad poster. I'm going to look at it right now.
Oh, God. Was that Nogueira's last fight? I can't remember.
I believe it was.
Oh, no, it was Struve. It was Struve.
Oh, Struve. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. So I think I've probably told you guys this before, but my same friends who I forced to watch Penn Montano on Fast Forward, we saw the fight card with Struve Nog and Shogun Little Nog on it, and I convinced them for a solid 5 minutes that the Nogs were the same guy that they'd forced to go out there twice.
Oh,
stuff.
It's always a good joke.
I need some friends who are naive about MMA but still willing to allow me to make them watch fights.
Just friends who are willing to allow you to make them to watch fights at this point would be like kind of a boon for me. Yeah. You know?
This is why this is fun, right? We can watch the worst fights imaginable. We get to chat about it. You know what I mean?
True.
If you have friends over and some beer and you're willing to enjoy having a bad time, the worst card on earth, I mean, Abu Dhabi would be enjoyable. It's all about having the right people around.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else happened at UFC 112? Of course, Silva Maia.
Didn't this have the Renzo Matt Hughes fight?
Yeah.
Oh.
That may have to be one of our bad fights at some point.
Oh. Like, it's so sad. I don't know. Like, that one's going to be tough. Like,
did it go all 15?
No, he got TKO'd to like leg kicks at some point, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, eventually they just waved it off.
20 seconds left, so they couldn't even have the consideration to finish the fight in the second round.
Can you imagine? Can you just picture trying to convince somebody of that who stopped watching MMA and UFC in 2009 that Matt Hughes would TKO Renzo Gracie via leg kicks, like.
And that it wouldn't even be interesting when it happened.
Yeah. Like the idea of Matt Hughes TKOing anyone with leg kicks just shows you how bad that fight was. Yeah, this whole card was just like.
There's also a split decision on the undercard between Rick Story and Nick Osipchak. I don't remember that fight, but just the details indicate that it was probably terrible. Rick Story split decisions, especially old school Rick Story. They were never really that fun to watch.
It's true. It's weird now when people hate on Rick Story, like, oh, Rick Story is so boring. And I'm like, I barely remember that Rick Story that you must be making you think that, because Rick Story these days is pretty awesome. But back in the day, not the most thrilling cat.
His opponent on this card lost all three of his. He won one UFC fight against Matt Riddle. He knocked out Matt Riddle, Nick Osipchak, but then went on to lose a split decision to Dwayne Ludwig.
Yeah, I thought Osipchak might have been something at some point. He seemed like he had a reasonably, he did reasonably well against Matt Riddle, which was obviously the fight in, was it Manchester? Because I think I saw that live. I think it was my first. I think it was the not particularly good UFC 105. Was it?
You're not looking at Wikipedia right now because your memory is spot on. Yes, it was Manchester UFC 105.
We're gonna have to do.
And that was
what was it? Was it Matt? Which was the Matt Riddle robot punching fight?
Oh, that was.
Pearson.
Yes.
Sean Pearson. That was amazing.
Matt Pearson at some point.
Oh yeah, that
fight. That could be a good bad fight. Even though I don't know if it qualifies, it's definitely fun to watch Matt Riddle just just begging to be punched in the face while he swings at the air around Sean Pearson's head. Real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Riddle fight in Manchester, I think, was the one where he needed to realize that he realized that jet lag existed. Like no one had told him that jet lag existed.
He never heard of it before that. He showed up the day before. He was just really tired.
Oh, that's beautiful. Matt Riddle is a gem that we really didn't appreciate in his time.
Oh yeah. I want to smoke a bowl with Matt Riddle. Absolutely. I think it would be the greatest. Guy who was a middling journeyman fighter, some really solid wins, some really embarrassing losses, became a pro wrestler after just consistently popping for marijuana. I mean, I need to hang out with Matt Riddle.
He's actually a pretty fun pro wrestler too.
He's got a personality, man. He's got some energy.
Well, and he's got this whole like no sell gig thing that he does. He's like the ultimate bro as a pro wrestler. Like that's his personality. And then he's like a no sell wrestler where like guys will try moves on him and he just is like, what? That doesn't, this is fake. That doesn't work. And it's fun.
I mean, his last was it his last performance, the one where it was the no contest and then he got kicked out of the UFC. Was that the Chris Clements fight? Like because he won it in some bizarrely awesome way. Like he did like a spinning back fist directly into a standing triangle, and I was just like, "What?"
There was
found myself.
And then the last one was his Michael Kuiper fight where he won by guillotine. No, that was in Titan. That's right. So the last one was Che Mills.
Yeah,
where he just took Che Mills down a lot because Che Mills was a killer and Riddle did not want.
Oh yeah.
The two fights that he won that were both solid wins over Chris Clements and Che Mills. Both of those in the UFC were no contests. I believe both due to cannabis.
Yep. The Devil Reaper.
Bullshit, frankly. And they raised the limits a ton after that. So he kind of got shafted.
See on Wikipedia, it now says Riddle tested positive for his rightful medicine.
Nice.
Awesome. Somebody's edited that, and clearly no one cares about Matt Riddle and change it back.
I just love that, like, he then, like, I don't even know if he's still on this kick, but then he had this whole, like, I don't even know if it's born again thing, but then he like was like cleaning up his life and he started calling it the devil's lettuce and all that stuff. And it's just like, I don't know if that may have gone away since he's now gone away from MMA and is in pro wrestling. It may have been one of those things where he's trying to revitalize his MMA career and prove to people that he was no longer a liability.
I don't know about devil's lettuce, by the way. If you look at the shape of a bud, it's more like the devil's Brussels sprouts. More accurate moniker.
You have to send him a memo on that one.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. Your vegetable comparison for marijuana is all wrong. Here's
all right, BJ Penn, Frankie. I'm excited just looking at this. Honestly, like just seeing it again. This is like Jake Shields, George St. Pierre again for me. Like I see it.
Yeah, that's where they get you. It's like you can put yourself right in the moment, and once again, imagine fight begins. By the way, right. Fight's about to start. It begins.
Dogging.
There we go. You can put yourself in the moment of the lead up and think, top contender, BJ Penn, all-time great. This fight's going to be amazing. And that is why it was disappointing. So we'll see if it's still disappointing now, a few years removed from the anticipation. But I do still feel like it should be a good fight. So I think I'll still be disappointed.
Yeah.
In 20 seconds.
Oh, sorry. What?
In 20 seconds, Edgar has already circumnavigated the cage once.
It's true. Oh, this is unfortunately before our forward pressure stats, so we're not going to know who walked forward more for this fight.
Oh no, the most useful of all stats.
Yes, we also, however, won't be able to see the fascinating statistic from Edgar Aldo too, which was that Aldo moved about half as much as Edgar while being the outfighter, which was very impressive. He actually moved less than the guy who was forced to pressure.
So Edgar's so far landed a good hard leg kick, and that is our offense of the first minute of the fight.
There's another one. Edgar's always had an underrated kicking game, but this is the thing is nothing Edgar does from range is particularly powerful. We've talked in the past about how he's a little underrated with the power he packs, but I think it's mostly clinches, pocket exchanges, when he can set his feet and let go hooks and uppercuts, short punches. He's got some physical strength behind them. But from range, nothing really seems to carry much impact. And that was probably the other reason why I hated this fight, is because Frankie Edgar was like my first nemesis in MMA. I never enjoyed his fights. I always rooted against him. I found him to be boring point fighter, and my feelings towards Frankie Edgar have changed. But that also is part of the reason why I remember this fight being so dull.
So far, BJ Penn's working a nice jab. Kept Edgar on the end of it, pot shotting him a little, ate a few kicks, but looks good.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think basically Frankie is he's got this little measuring jab that he used to come in, but there's nothing really behind it. So there'll be a couple of times where he'll land it, tap it a couple of times, and then Penn will just ding him with an obviously magnitudes harder jab, and then he'll back out again.
It's a very classic BJ Penn performance so far for this career point of BJ Penn.
Edgar landed a decent left hook there and a leg kick, but he got countered.
Yeah, slapped with a good left hook from Penn there. But
this was Edgar in the days where he was really, really committed to the idea of constant movement.
Yeah.
To his detriment, where he would be hit because his feet weren't set, or he'd be trying to take angles when he's way too close to the guy.
That was a really nice classic BJ Penn single leg uppercut takedown defense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what this looks like to me right now is it could be the first round of a good fight.
Mm-hmm.
But if this round repeats itself for 4 more rounds, then it's a bad fight. That's what I say.
Yeah, it's a slow simmer. And if it never becomes anything more than a slow simmer, then you're in for disappointment.
Especially on a night that's already kind of renowned for being one of the worst in UFC history. It would need to elevate beyond this in some way to be considered a good fight, I would say.
We've also had less offense since Edgar got plugged with a couple of hooks and got plugged again coming in there with a right uppercut.
It looked like an uppercut.
Yeah, it's hard because the first round, this is a very clear Penn round, and he's doing well, and I feel like this is a good, solid Penn fight so far. This is a classic what I expect out of BJ Penn kind of fight.
There was a nice little lead uppercut from Frankie.
I mean, one of the unfortunate things, that was a lovely jab by BJ, as he just kind of walked in and popped him. Wasn't a counter like most of his ones have been so far. Just tracked down where he was. But I think one of the problems is obviously just that, and again, is that obviously that Frankie just has a ton more heart than BJ does. And that's what makes this fight more competitive than perhaps it should have been at the time. Because I think BJ, if he can just keep this up, I think.
Well, this is not at all different from, what BJ Penn did to a lot of the guys that he dominated and beat.
Yeah.
That he really outclassed and finished. This looks already like the start to the Diego Sanchez fight, maybe, which started out kind of close with Sanchez trying and constantly trying to come forward and get something done. Or maybe even the start to the Kenny Florian fight. A lot of BJ's fights started out fairly competitive, and then he just stuck to fundamental boxing and picked them apart. Or the Sean Shirk fight's a great example, where it slowly becomes more and more one-sided for BJ Penn.
Yeah. I wonder how Doug Crosby scored that round.
I wonder how BJ got that mark under his eye.
Yeah, he didn't get hit much in that fight, but
I didn't see a right hand land at all for Frankie.
No. It might have been those jabs.
Could have been a clash of heads too when Frankie was ducking in on him.
Could have been. When he was getting uppercut, maybe he jerked his head up and hit BJ in the cheek. That could have happened as well.
I mean, one of BJ's obvious freak gifts, of which he has many, is his crocodile skin. It's generally extremely difficult to cut or mark up in any significant way.
It's true. Oh, all right. So we're very much back to the same, round starting the same way. Edgar moving a lot, Penn controlling the middle, and it's yet to be a bad fight, but it's yet to be a good fight. So you may have something. Not fully willing to buy it yet, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much the quality of BJ's jab is determining the fight so far.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that there are long stretches between these exchanges.
Mm-hmm. It also does, however, right now we're kind of, nice left hook from BJ Penn there.
Yep.
We're also kind of seeing, however, the reason that BJ so clearly lost the rematch, which is that his footwork isn't that great.
Yep.
Not a good left hook. But the thing is that when BJ has to come forward, like a lot of guys who look like good boxers, like Nate Diaz, come after Nate Diaz, looks like a good boxer, make Nate come after you, his footwork really looks terrible because he doesn't know how to cut off the cage. And we're seeing a lot of that from BJ. It's a lot of kind of standing and waiting on Frankie. And you can imagine that if Frankie could just kind of put together which techniques work more and be a little more committed to his shots, he could run some circles around BJ. The problem is that he's so unsure of coming in that BJ's kind of just being allowed to stand his ground and pop off its jab like he just did there.
There was a nice bit of body work there from Frankie in the middle of that. Landed a 1-2 to the body.
It's picking up a little bit. Pace is picking up. A few more exchanges.
Yeah, but we've also, it feels like in this round we've seen less strikes that actually are like landing clean.
Like neither guy's surprising each other anymore.
Yeah. Like neither. Oh, there was
a clash of heads.
Nice left hook from at the end of that from Penn.
Yeah, but there was definitely a clash of heads there. I think it looked like Frankie's forehead hit the same side of BJ's face.
Yeah, so that's probably where that mark came from.
That's the thing, man. Old school Frankie just wouldn't let his feet set. He just would not sit down on a jab, or the only things he would throw power in were kicks when he felt he was absolutely safe at long distance.
He's also much worse at angling out after he throws a strike. He just tends to kind of duck his head and then try and back out again, rather than he occasionally weaves, but only at distance. When he actually closes in, he'll just throw a strike, duck his head down, hence the clashing of heads, and then back away.
I always felt that Frankie would get hit because he would try to line up his right hand. He'd try to step to his left, step off line, and line up that right. And then his head would kind of stay there, and he would just sort of take these loping side steps away. And so he would constantly, because if you try to line up your right hand, you are also lining up the right hand of your opponent. And a lot of the instances where Frankie Edgar got hit hard in retaliation is when he would just try to line up his right and then get hit while he was sort of lazily circling away afterwards. There was a good little counter hook from Frankie.
Yeah, I think what we're starting to see in this round is Frankie's being busier, but Penn is still landing the better combos. Edgar will throw 3 or 4 strikes for every 2 that Penn throws, but Penn's are landing a lot cleaner and better.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's still a pretty easy Penn round for me, I think. I was expecting to find this closer than I did the first time I watched it, and that was a very nice counter there from BJ on a little. Because Edgar's had success a couple of times on the rushes because Penn doesn't generally back away and counter, but that time Penn decided not to stand his ground and caught Edgar right in the middle of it.
So there's Edgar's first takedown, but it doesn't result in much. And neither guy really landed anything clean off it, although they both threw off the break. And we are getting into a very slow simmer of a rhythm where like Edgar's toughness is riding him through the shots that like Penn's good timing and the power he's getting on these shots doesn't look very effective, and it's not meaning a lot because Edgar can just eat it. And Edgar isn't sitting down on anything well enough to actually make it land with any force. Yeah.
It's like BJ's not emphatic or dynamic enough a power striker to override Frankie Edgar's chin and determination, and Frankie Edgar is not comfortable enough letting anything go to make that really count in a round winning sort of way.
So, I mean, I would say that's a tougher round to score than you might think. Penn landed the better strikes, but he did get outworked a little. You know?
I would give it to Penn as well, but
yeah, but when you have a round like that where neither guy lands anything definitive, I'm never going to be that shocked when it goes one way or another, you know?
Yeah, and that's the problem with BJ. Like a lot of what BJ did well was totally reactive. You know, he could stop your takedown, he could counterpunch you, but if you ask BJ Penn to take over a fight, he's never really been that good at it. And that's why a lot of his fights that are remembered as being great, fantastic performances. You know, I rewatched his fight with Sean Shirk recently, and I remembered it being amazing. BJ Penn just effortlessly. It was one of the very first fights I'd ever seen, and I was astounded at the way BJ kept Shirk on the end of his jab and moved his head and was never there to be hit. You know, the fight was kind of close, and that's a lot of BJ Penn's fights. Is until he finds that big moment, they're kind of close, and he's not really putting a stamp on it. So even winning these rounds, you know, he's certainly not. It does still look, even though BJ Penn has won both of the first two rounds, it still looks like Frankie Edgar is actually putting together a game plan. He's figuring out what works against BJ, where BJ is just kind of doing the same thing.
Well, I mean, you have to think too in regards to this fight being scored against Penn. So you got to think like, well,
where did they see those rounds?
Penn is winning these rounds, but why would the judges maybe score round 2 against him?
Yeah.
And in part, it's just because when you're landing a couple of sharp counters on the 3 or 4 strikes that the guy in front of you is putting together, that's
vicious look there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, you know, I think it was Pat who was complaining about this on Twitter after that terrible Sohee Ham Danielle Taylor decision, where like judges are really bad at calling counter strikes or like scoring counter strikes.
Even though BJ Penn has landed some really telling counter strikes throughout this fight.
Well, and Ham landed a bunch of ones on Taylor. Like I remember I left for the end of that Ham Taylor fight. Like I saw the whole thing and then I left before the decision was read. And it was like 6 hours later and I looked at the thing. I was like, wait, what? Taylor won?
Poor Ham.
Like, that was the clearest, easiest 29-28 fight to score ever for Sohee Ham.
Didn't Taylor pick up a 30-27 card?
She did.
Am I crazy?
I think she may have picked up 2.
That's one of the worst cards of the year.
Yeah, it was that was a clear case of daylight robbery. And so yeah, we still see like Edgar, he's not sitting down on he's sitting down his kicks, but you know, he'll throw 2 light punches and then he gets countered hard with a left hook.
That's why I didn't like Frankie Edgar. He never sat down on anything. I saw him, you know, purely as a guy who wanted to score points and not get hit back, and never as a guy who went in there and had and threatened to finish the fight. It looks to me too like Penn's reach is what's really troubling Edgar, because he's able to do a really risky counter with consistent success, where Edgar comes in with the right hand and BJ pulls his head back away and smacks him with the left hook after he misses. And that is very risky if the other guy's arms are as long as yours, because he can catch you. Pulling straight back from a right hand is risky, but it's working over and over. And I think it's also
that Penn is ridiculously fast.
Yeah, but also that Frankie is not really committing to the right hand. He feels it missing, and he doesn't continue driving through to hit BJ, and then he gets countered. He's not willing to sit down on it or to follow through.
So I think BJ's other problem is the way the rounds are playing out, because in specifically the second round and this round as well, he is winning the early going very convincingly, and then it's tightening up in the late going.
Yeah.
And that is also something which judges, you know, because judges have the memory of a goldfish.
Yeah.
Although you admittedly just landed a very nice 2-piece there, but you know, if you can win the last minute of a round, they'll just forget.
Yeah.
They'll just forget the previous 4 a lot of the time.
That's a big part of it. It's just too like
nice left hook from Frankie in there.
I think they see Edgar diving in on all these combinations, and it's just like, oh, like something like that.
That was a nice setup.
Yep.
I've never seen
that. That was good. Yeah,
it was nice.
Fake
But
knee
they see
tap to a
Edgar
body
driving
kick
in on a lot of things, and they just don't see Penn do they may see Penn may, even if he lands a good shot like that left hook on the exit of that combination against Edgar there, that's all Edgar initiating. And I think judges just kind of see that and they say, well, that's Edgar's offense,
Mm-hmm.
I'll trust that he landed good shots inside, even if he got countered coming out.
Edgar is definitely dictating the pace of the fight. He definitely has the initiative. He's making BJ react to him. Problem is that BJ's still reacting pretty well.
Yeah.
And Edgar having the initiative is not yet enough to overcome the freak athleticism of BJ.
Yeah, I haven't seen Edgar land a single strike in this fight that looked like it snapped BJ's head back or hit him clean enough to be like, oh wow. We've seen him land a couple hard body kicks and stuff like that, but it's never been like, oh, that that looks like it hurt him. Nothing has looked like it hurt Penn.
Also, take a look at how much distance BJ is covering. Again, I have to say, that still looks like a Penn round to me. But he is literally at points almost standing in the center of the cage and rotating.
Yep.
He is he's not even doing what we saw from, what we've seen from guys like Pettis or JDS, where he's kind of walking after the guy. He's literally standing in the center and just turning in a circle.
He's just countering. And I think that is both very impressive and probably the reason he lost the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Edgar's dictating. He has the initiative. BJ has to turn when Edgar turns. Every time BJ moves, it's because Edgar moves, and he doesn't move much. And so it looks like Edgar's orchestrating what's happening in the fight. In reality, it's not really. He's not doing that strongly enough to win. But
yeah, he's making Penn. So Penn is entirely reacting to what Edgar's doing, both in terms of the way they want to have the fight, and and to the actual attacks that Edgar's throwing. He is simply standing there and waiting for Penn for Edgar to close range, so he can pop him with the jab or these little short combinations.
I will say we are officially now in bad fight territory.
It's not killing me, but
it's not killing you, but this is actually the direct fight after the Diego Sanchez win. So
yeah.
This is officially gotten to the point where we are at a low simmer in which it's just staying there. And Penn's in the middle of the cage. He's landing the better shots, and Edgar is dictating the action. And we are at that is just where the fight is. And it's a stalemate of those two aspects.
Edgar can't take over. BJ Penn won't allow himself, or also can't take over. So it's kind of just.
Well, and you saw at the end of that round, I think it was especially telling. BJ looked like he was stepping forward for a flying knee.
Yeah.
But Edgar was rotating out, and Penn just he didn't have any of the dynamic burst to make that, and the footwork to then make that count.
And it is worth remembering this is 105 degrees or something in this arena. It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
So there's just no, I don't think Penn could necessarily catch up to Edgar if he wanted to press the fight.
There was a moment of success there from Frankie when he pressured BJ.
Yeah.
He had him against the fence and kind of played a guessing game with him. And I think he's slowly finding out that if he gets BJ to back up, he actually has an easier time landing than if he's circling around him. Because BJ's you're not outmaneuvering him. He's just pivoting on his back foot and just constantly refacing you.
Yep.
But if you get his back to the fence, you can confuse his defense.
Yeah. And because he's just sitting there, he's allowing Edgar to kind of cycle through all his options. He's like, okay, so we try the knee tap, so it doesn't work. So we try the knee tap to the body kick, and it kind of works. We try the knee tap to the body shot. He's constantly able to just and he keeps going and going. And BJ, for all his many gifts, is not a guy that just keeps on going when things are getting bad. I mean, I'm not sure that BJ has ever won a fight where he lost the first round, or where he lost, where he started going down early. I think he is one of MMA's great front runners.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said earlier after the second round that it definitely Penn winning the rounds, but it does look like Edgar's the one figuring things out. Like Penn had Edgar's number to start, but he's passive enough that he's allowing Edgar to figure out what his number is.
And I think Edgar's real.
We talked about how, like, you can easily see too that, like, Edgar, if he understands, like, well, I really need to watch out for that left hook, how he can come back and actually take over a second fight between them. Like,
Frankie Edgar is one of the great, what's the opposite of a front runner? He's one of the great comeback artists of all time. A guy who consistently does better in the fifth round than he does in the first, and consistently does better in the rematch than he does in the first fight, unless he's fighting Jose Aldo. He's a guy who is always a great adapter.
Yeah. And I think his real difference that his answer that he's found in this round, and this is easily his best round, is the body shots.
Definitely.
He's just closing in body shots.
He started to find those in the third round too.
Well, and he's finally, like, he's throwing a straight 1-2 and moving his head as he gets out, which is meaning that left hook is landing a little less.
Penn just nailed him with 2 straight shots, though.
He did. Yeah. But just like now the busyness actually is counting for a little extra, although Penn is actually kind of dialing him up at the moment. But
Frankie's winning this round, I think.
Yeah.
He got the body shots in. He's setting up the left hook, takedowns, other attacks off of it. Still pot shotting, still moving. But he's
by the way, shot there.
If Frankie Edgar would just throw more body shots throughout his career, he would probably be one of the greatest of all time. He's a very good body puncher and really knows how to work body punches into his other attacks. But it usually takes him 3 rounds or even an entire fight and then the rematch before he'll really start doing it.
Oh, so yeah, this is actually kind of a grind at this point, I gotta say. Like,
it's not great, right?
I've gotten to the point now where we are in round 4, and the fight's not changing from this.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what instantaneous success either of them have anymore. Like, the close of that round was pretty fun. Both guys going back and forth, both guys getting their licks in. But it feels like what people say about flyweight. It feels like there are no consequences. Yeah.
Yep.
It just kind of feels like there's no stakes in this fight, and that's kind of why it's, because I think watching it live, you would look at this fight and you'd kind of know nothing else is going to happen.
Exactly.
This is the fight.
Yeah, and it's something that happens a lot in big headline fights. If they get to, like, after round 3, you're just kind of like, okay, unless it's Weidman Romero, you're just kind of, although that was only a 3-round fight, but anyway, with a lot of big fights, if they get to a certain stage, you just know that it's just going to keep going like that because both guys are too good. They're not going to offer enough mistakes to get knocked out or hurt or subbed. And they've shown each other their games,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's the kind of contract that they sign between each other. Like, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. And, that's pretty much what we're here for.
And high-level fighters, I think they have a lot of belief in what they're doing is working. Like, I know how to follow my plan, and my plan will work. And so if it works okay, that was a nice takedown from Edgar. Mm-hmm. If the plan works okay, then they don't change. Like, they may be slightly losing every round, but the plan is working okay.
It is very, very difficult to assess who is actually getting the better of the big picture of the round or the fight when you're fighting. It's very, very difficult to, you can win a round and feel like you lost because the last jab that hit your mouth, like you really felt your teeth dig into your lip and it really hurt. You're like, well, that was the best shot of the round. And you feel like you lose even though you won. And you can really feel like you're winning if nothing's hurting you, but you're getting outpointed. It's almost impossible for most people to take themselves out of the moment and view the fight as a whole.
Yeah, it's also why a lot of people, when you hear especially fans who talk about like, oh well, his corner thought he was losing, or the fighter himself, he thought he was losing in that fight, obviously for like a bad decision or something. It's like these people don't know.
They don't. Yeah, that's the last person you should ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the classic one for me is that like for how people have no idea what's going on. And it's not even necessarily just like, you get dinged by a punch and you forget what's happening. It's the fact that, so much of the time their brain is just jumping back and forth between kind of autopilot and like, what's my strategic approach and what's my tactical approach, and just seeing like punches flying at their face. They have like the classic one for me is I think Dominic Cruz to Kei Mitsugaki. Because they ask after the fight, they're like, so how did you do this? Like, you knocked him out. You never knock people out. It's amazing. And he was just like, I don't know, I don't remember. He was a 60-second fight where he didn't get hit once, and he had no idea what had happened.
He didn't even have time to sit on a stool and like think about what had just happened. He didn't have any moment between rounds to realize how the fight was going. 60 seconds. I mean, that's all adrenaline. That was purely adrenaline.
Edgar's doing pretty well in this round, we should say.
Edgar won the last round, and he's winning this round as well.
Yeah. Definitely. He had a nice nice lead left hook. He got countered by a leg kick off it, but it landed flush. He's definitely starting to land the better kicks, and it seems like Penn is probably starting to get a little tired.
He looks tired and a little frustrated as well.
Yep.
I think he kind of expects most people to go away after eating a bunch of clean shots, or for their body language to change, and that is the difficulty of fighting Frankie Edgar. He's Frankie Edgar for 25 minutes, and he's usually a slightly better Frankie Edgar in each concurrent round.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that obviously you could put all 3 Edgar Penn fights back to back, and they would have a completely clear graph of like Penn winning down to Frankie winning.
Penn.
Yeah. Like Penn's winning really easily at the beginning, and then he's like, by this, which is our current, a third of the way through, he's starting to slip away, and then for the next 5 rounds, he's going to get dominated, and then he's going to get absolutely crushed and finished. Like
I want BJ to stand on his tippy toes in this fight. It would make it more interesting. It would make it more interesting.
Oh Jesus, no!
Yeah, and you can see too that because Penn's his counter game is really reliant so heavily on his hand speed. Like as he's slowed down a little, now those counters aren't landing, and now he's just getting hit a couple times, and Edgar's able to get out of the way.
The punches are more sweeping and obvious than they were before. Yep. Good jab by Frankie.
I have to say, like with Tippy Toe Penn, I have to think whether he'd ever actually seen that. You guys must have seen it, like that cartoon thing of which BJ will show up, the Helo Kid or the Octa Prodigy, and there's one that's like the Velociprodigy, and it's like him as a dinosaur, and I'm wondering whether he actually saw that one and he was like, yeah, yeah, maybe I can fight like a dinosaur.
You know what? BJ Penn on his tippy toes might be the most baffling thing I've ever seen in the UFC. I think like a super experienced, skilled boxer who told him that was a good idea. And the thing is Jason Perillo, who's a super nice guy, very excited for his fighters, totally threw BJ under the bus after that fight. He's like, listen, for my reputation, I'll have you know, that was not my fucking idea. BJ thought of that. I came in a week before the fight, and it was too late to change it, so don't associate my name with that tippy-toe bullshit. He was very emphatic about it.
Yeah.
So I'd call that a 48-47 for BJ Penn.
Yeah, that I got the last 2 rounds for Edgar, but the first 3 for Penn. The question really comes down to that second round, though, which was just kind of an ugly, bad round at that point. Like, I think Penn won it, but it wasn't a clean round.
There's a possibility. I mean, the only round that BJ Penn really, really put his mark on was round 1.
Yeah.
There's also the possibility that they gave Edgar round 3 because he started to take over in the last 2 minutes or so, and he was a lot busier than BJ.
I don't know. I think it's a clear 50-45 Edgar. I'm Doug Crosby and me, alone against the world.
That can't have been the actual scorecard, could it?
No, yeah, that was Doug Crosby's scorecard. It was 50-45.
He gave 5 rounds to Frankie Edgar?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Wow.
It is one of the worst cards of all time.
Man, oh
Like
man.
that was when I thought that that was when I was convinced that Penn had won because
You said 50-45.
as clear as
I know Penn won the round, at least a couple rounds. So
yeah, I was like, there's no way he lost rounds 1 and 3, right? Like I don't think he won round 5, but it's much So I was just in that very short amount of time. That was my when you run through the scenarios in your head, and I was like, oh yeah, 50-45. And
all right, that was a pretty bad fight, I'll admit.
okay, you win, Connor. You win.
It wasn't great, right? I mean, it wasn't. I will say, I think Zane's prediction of a sort of a mediocre compromise was correct. It was not as terrible as I remember. I appreciated more now what both guys were doing, but it definitely wasn't. It wasn't really better than I expected in any concrete way.
No, and it is one of the fights. It's a slow simmer the whole way through, so that by the time the end of round 3 hits, you're like, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen for the next 2 rounds. I could turn this off, and I would know exactly how this fight is going to look the rest of the way through.
Yeah, watching it now in this context, I can appreciate what Frankie Edgar was doing, kind of building his attacks and putting together layers the way he does. One of the best things he does is sort of systematically flow charting his way to success. But he didn't do it emphatically enough for it to become a strong narrative in this fight. So you couldn't watch this and say, oh, look, Frankie Edgar's taking over. He's figuring BJ Penn out. Like, BJ was kind of in there the whole time, and Frankie was kind of nervous about really sitting down on anything the whole time. So the whole fight ended up kind of being
so
the same.
The most notable thing about this for me is that was in 2010. Think about what a complete fucking clusterfuck lightweight has become since this fight. Like, forever since this.
It all seemed very clear for a few years there. BJ Penn was the best, Frankie Edgar was the best, Ben Henderson was the best. Now it's just fucking madness.
But even that though, because after this we got the second BJ Penn fight. It was like, okay, Frankie Edgar is the best. He's going to dominate. And then he drew Gray Maynard.
I think the thing is, everyone still expected him to lose to Gray Maynard.
Yeah. And then he beat Gray Maynard, which was an amazing fight. And then he lost to Ben Henderson in a fight that a lot of people thought he won. And he rematched Ben Henderson in a fight a lot of people thought he won.
It's Frankie Edgar's career is strange because he totally deserved to win the Ben Henderson rematch.
Yeah.
I think it was one of his best performances, and he lost. And he totally deserved to lose the first one to Ben Henderson, but his fans couldn't let it go. They have the Aldo fights. You have everything. Frankie Edgar is just the scrappiest dude out there because everything is like just him clawing his way over the brink to success.
But after the Edgar, after he lost to Ben Henderson twice, the second one rather controversially, then Ben Henderson had a very dominating win over Nate Diaz, then barely beat Gilbert Melendez in a fight that some people thought he lost, and then immediately got armbarred by Anthony Pettis. And we know where we've gone from there. Anthony Pettis beating Gilbert Melendez and then immediately losing to RDA, who beat Donald Cerrone and then immediately got trucked by Eddie Alvarez. And ever since this fight, lightweight has basically just been weird fights all the way. Maybe you get you'll get one fight where it's oh yeah, that's clear and definitive and all is right with the world. And then it's just right back into the clusterfuck.
Yeah.
And we're still there with Conor McGregor at the top. I mean,
is this even the best way to do this show, Zane? Because it really feels like that. It feels like the disappointment fight just sucks all the air out of the room. It's we started off having so much fun with Benoit Serrano, enough to carry us through Pendred Montano, one of the worst fights ever, and somehow 5 rounds of 2 of the best lightweights of all time really, really killed it.
It's true. It did make it a good disappointment fight.
Yeah.
So there's one interesting thing I thought about the end of that fight, which I didn't notice or remember from the last time, which is that as soon as the decision was announced, BJ just turns and goes to shake his hand. He's not like he doesn't go, oh my God, I just got robbed. He immediately turns to shake Edgar's hand like he knew he'd lost.
No, Penn's always been a classy dude, honestly. Like when it comes to in-cage opponent treating, he's never been like.
Yeah, I would assume that would be more of his sense of honor than him acknowledging.
It's not the classiness; it's the speed. It's that there's no time for disappointment to register. He's not like, I won that. He's just immediately like, okay, shake hands. It's instantaneous. Like if you watch it, it happens. They announce, and then he immediately just goes to shake his hand like he knew it was coming. Which is
weird. Probably felt like he lost, frankly.
Yeah. Well, we've already talked about that being an unreliable metric for justifying the decision in a fight, but maybe it does say something about what it feels like to fight Frankie Edgar.
Yeah. Yeah. Penn may have easily felt like he lost that fight because he didn't dominate Frankie Edgar. To him, that may have just been.
Because when I watched the rematch, I was expecting, as a lot of people were, I was like, this time Penn's going to put him away. He's going to dominate him. He's going to not let him get away with this kind of stuff. But then he walked out and he looked a bit like a zombie when he was coming out, and I was just thinking, oh no. And he had that. He had that thing when he stood in the cage and they jab him in the back of the head with the poster, and he just lets it happen. And at that point, I just started having this terrible sinking feeling.
You know what I've heard about that moment is apparently BJ is very superstitious about being touched before his fights.
Really?
So apparently the look on his face, if you know that, it kind of registers as just absolute terror that one of his cornermen is touching him behind the fence, and that it's going to completely throw off his mojo. And then he just kind of breathes a little bit when he realizes it's the stupid fucking banner. But it's maybe, that plays into the story of BJ Penn as the ultimate front runner, because even a fight that he should have won, you can't expect BJ Penn to come back in the rematch with a vengeance. Instead, BJ Penn comes back having spent the last 8 weeks ready to be frustrated again. And so he's going to be worse than it was the first time. And Frankie Edgar, the ultimate comeback fighter, is totally the opposite. You give him a second chance after a tough first fight, he's almost every single time going to do significantly better.
Well, that being, I think that's a good point to end our show, because we've taken more than enough time on this. It was fun, though. We got a lot of good discussion in. We talked about and watched some terrible fights. And fittingly, I think we ended depressed. And, I understand you think that maybe we should do the show in reverse. But this is kind of what the show is. It's not supposed to be an uplifting, happy show that helps us become better people. It's supposed to force us through the shitter.
Perhaps our closing words, our tagline for every episode should be, "This has been the MMA Depressed Us, and it did." And then just end the show. Perhaps that should be it.
On that note, you can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Connor on Twitter at BoxingBush, BUSCH. You can find Phil on Twitter at EvilGregJackson. I can't remember. Is there any other underscores or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, so just Evil Greg Jackson.
Somehow he got that name first. No numbers or anything required.
I'm kind of surprised Greg Jackson didn't get that name first. I bet Greg Jackson's pissed that he couldn't get Evil Greg.
Evil Greg Jackson is when he's like yelling at Carlos Condit or telling him GSP to hit the guy with your groin.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, and obviously you can find us all at Bloody Elbow, where we'll be doing all sorts of other work. I'll probably be back with some MMA vivisections coming up. We'll be hopefully breaking down UFC 207, maybe on Monday, I'm thinking. If you're up for it. Otherwise, and maybe I'll be doing a Rise in vivisection, stuff like that. I'm not sure yet what my schedule will allow for. But thanks for everyone for tuning in. Give us a like over on YouTube. That's a thumbs up. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM. Those things help us a ton. And we will see you all next time.